Alright guys, today we are going to be assembling the Fred from Jeds Peds. Jeds Peds, thank you for your order, etc., etc. When you receive your package, it's going to have a lot of itty bits, a lot of sheet metal parts and everything else. It looks like they basically drilled it out and then put it in the package. So there's like a lot of little shavings and things like that. Just be careful. It's just my suggestion. I don't know if you can really see that, but all that right there. Now, this is what you get. And boom. What I like to do is I like to mark all of this with the date and all of that and the name and signature and all that first, but before I start actually wiring the PCB. But you have all your multicolors. Looks like we've got orange and red and purple and black. Oh my. We have our actual PCB. On this side, it looks like this is the side that we're going to be focusing on. Being able to see the resistors and capacitors and diodes, transistors, whatever is going to go in here, most of them are already labeled, which is nice. Now the question is, what all is going to go into finding the values of everything. I like to separate everything in basically in their own groups. So B50K, looks like there's two of those. A 500K, there's one of those. A 100K, one of those. B 5K, one of those, and it looks like we have one more left, and it is B100K. B100K, okay, that's it. So there's that. We have our input and output jacks, and it looks like they already have gone through and put the washers and the nuts on them. That's very awesome. I admire things like this, the small details. We have our power input, our DC jack. It already has the retaining nut as well. We've got our switch. It is not silent, which is fine. It is a soft switch though, which I'm down for. Insert switch, LED, clear, this side. We have our checklist from the company, and that is stapled to the closed bag. So that is sealed. My best guess at this moment, before I triple check all of this, is that these guys have been accurately checked off here. We'll see. We will see. I gotta look into all this stuff. We're gonna find out next how easy it is to get the information and where to go from there. Let's see. We got a loose capacitor. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but yeah, a little ceramic capacitor. It's a loose guy. And then we've got our screws for the back plate, and we've got plenty of metal shavings in here, so I'm going to clear all this out. Yeah, man, this is covered in shavings. All right, so now that you go to the website, and let's see right there, thank you for ordering. Let's make sure that's in frame. Cool. Thank you for ordering. Your build docs are available at the product page at jedspeds.co.uk. So basically, when you go onto the website, you'll see under the description and all of the picture of the build and everything like this, right here, there'll be several different pieces that you can connect, you can select, and one of them is the build guide. So when you go to the build guide, you can download it as a PDF. That's what I did. But I am a huge fan of Tangible. And just so you guys see, That's what I was talking about. You know, put the name on it, label it, I guess I should say, what it is, the date that I built it, and my initials. But what I'll do is I will actually physically print out the manual. I like having the tangible. That way it shows me physically where I'm at. And then I'll usually take this page, the table of contents, since it's mostly blank, and I'm actually going to use that to place these pieces here. Once I know exactly their values and what they are, what they're labeled, and where they go on the PCB, I'll put a strip of painter's tape and label each one of these. So that way, when I'm building, I'm literally just looking at the instructions and saying, okay, there's that one, boom, there's that one, boom. They're mostly all resistors, and they're all really tiny. If you don't know about resistors, they all have tiny color codings, and there's 5 stripes for each one. And I have found that in building pedals, even though I'm still new to it, relatively new to it, I have found that in building pedals, that is more of a pain in the butt than anything else, is to stop what you're doing when you're on a roll, to like look at the color coding and then identify it and then solder it and then go back and do it again and again and again and again and again. It's a pain in the ass. Or your parts list for the main circuit, because that's going to matter. All the measurements, that's going to matter. Something tells me I might just have to measure all these out. Yeah, I think so, because on the suggested tools it shows you the station, yeah, got it, soldering, got it, snippers, pliers, solder sucker, desolder braid, PCB clamp. I don't use a PCB clamp just because it's more difficult. I use a folded towel, and it's easier for me to just put the components, you know, spread the legs, ha ha ha, insert joke, flip it over, and it doesn't go anywhere, and I can just come down on it and solder, and then, you know, snip everything off, turn it back around, and it's still like 100%. It's not going anywhere. But it tells you that it suggests it's an essential suggested tool, that it's a multimeter. So, and the center punch and the drill bits, we don't need those because I bought the case pre-drilled, which is unfortunate that it's not like this where it's all clear on the sides and then everything's up top. It is kind of scenario where everything's on the sides and nothing's on the top. So whatever, it is what it is. But that doesn't matter. Now, schematic, they give you the detailed overview of how to measure resistors and what they are. And then it automatically will tell you about the diodes, what they should look like, how they're polarized, and which side goes into what, how you want to matchy to from the component to the actual space, LEDs, integrated circuit chips, capacitors. Now it's time to get to building your pedal. Pots. Yeah, we're going to have to figure all that out as well. As far as the what measurements go where. I mean, it's nice that they have a picture, but they don't have the picture where it shows the values. I would have changed that. The power sockets, how to connect all of this, how to test the PCB. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to measure each of these things, which is kind of a pain in the ass, but hey, it builds character. And your switch. So it looks like we are going to have to, yeah, we're going to have to measure each of these components, which really sucks. But that's fine. That gives me something to do. Love Jed. Yeah, thanks, Jed. Next time, just, you know, whatever. We could go through here and like look at each of the resistors and then go, oh, okay, well that's yellow and red and green, and I don't want to do that. I don't have time for that. I don't have the patience for that shit. So we will do the old school way of multimeter and painter's tape. And then every time I put one on here, get the value, I can check it off, and I'll know which one it is from measuring. Resistance and all that, but resistance is your omega. I turn it on and then select for auto. Pretty simple. And you take your positive and your negative, and in this resistor right here, you put the negative first, hit the positive, and it reads out 9.96, which means it's a 10K resistor. And that, if you look right here, we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10K resistors. So I'm looking for 5 of those. That's great. So let's just go ahead and start with that being called R8, right? So I'll take this guy and put it on my little sheet and then put R8 and check this off simultaneously. So R8, check, and then R8. So it looks like that. Pretty simple. This will be filled, and then I'll have the ability to just pick and go. So we'll take our next resistor, see, little guy, and instead of counting all those lines and checking out the color and going blind, we'll just hit negative first and positive. 3.28 kilo ohms, so it's probably going to be a 3.3, and 3.3 kilo ohms, so that's R7. Nothing really difficult, it's just something that it helps me out with building. It helps me double check all the parts at the same time, but then when I go to my sheet and I just start ripping through them, it's easy for me to go through and say, oh yeah, there's R7, there's R8, you know, yada, 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 yada. Okay, we've gone through a checklist, and I see that I have one capacitor missing. So I'm not entirely sure how that all is going to work, but I do have, this is my example of what I was talking about, where you see all the resistors, you have the capacitors, both or all 3 types of capacitors, diodes, D1 and 2, or D1 is this little guy right there, and D2 and 3 are the white. Suggested by most pedal manufacturers that you start with the smallest components that are lowest to the board, and then you work your way up to the higher components. That way you don't have to work over anything and you don't have any problems with soldering. So we're going to do just that. All right. We'll see here. R5 is number 1. So we will get R5. Here we go. And I've had my soldering iron on for quite a while, so it's nice and hot, which is great. And with these, the resistors, they're not polarized, meaning they can go in either way, and it's not going to make a difference. Let's see, R5. Push it down all the way to the board, and then get the legs in a specific manner, like that. Yep. And then once we're done, we'll solder those together. Rinse and repeat. Now let's see, R2. Again, we'll just take our pliers, and all I'm doing is literally just, like, as you can, hopefully you can see, I'm not even clamping down on the leg. I'm just simply using it to bend here. I'm holding and bending. I'll show you one more time. Just like that. This is how I do it. I don't necessarily know what everyone's methods are. Everyone to each their own, you know what I mean? Like, let me do it my way, you do it your way, everyone wins. Like that. And it'll look a lot better once we solder and snip and everything else, but now I'm going to just do the rest. Alright, so this is where we are currently at with all of our resistors in their places. This row here I already soldered in, clipped off, all that other stuff. These last 5 resistors right there are still loose, and so that way you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm not the end-all be-all person to talk to about soldering. I have my method, other people have their methods. There's, is there right and wrong? Sure. Will people give their opinions whether you ask for it? Yup, every time. So, that being said, again, with all due respect, I really don't give a shit. But you take your soldering tip, you make sure you run it through your little steel wool, clean it off, and we're going to tend the tip by just doing a little bit of that action right there. Right? Don't need much. And then we're going to get to it. And you place the tip of the iron between the leg and the actual lug that it's getting soldered to on the board, and that way it'll create a heating joint. Then you just add the solder to the tip and let the solder flow. Major thing, do not blow on the solder. That will cause a cold solder joint, and it can cause issues. If you got to exhale or, deep breath, sigh, or whatever the case, do it away from your point of contact. Now, I like to turn the board because, again, I want to have access to getting into the joint. That way I'm not staying on the board too long, but I'm also avoiding more messiness than I already currently cause. Because, again, I'm not the end-all be-all for soldering. I'm not an expert per se. I've done a lot of soldering, but I've done a lot of shitty soldering, so take it at face value. I've found a decent deal of success approaching it like this, and all of our joints look relatively good. They're not overlapping, which is another thing you got to make sure of, is that you're not connecting the solder joints together. If you put too much solder and 2 of these globules become one, you're gonna mess up your circuitry. Honestly, it's not gonna perform properly because you're completing a different circuit than what it should be. But I digress. That's it. You just need to do that, and then we'll take our trusty little snippers. Snip, snip, right? Little flat nose, or a little flat angled, and just kind of raise the legs back up like that. Get right at the point of contact. And I always flip it over just so it doesn't come flying at my eyeball, because realistically, you'd be wearing eye protection while doing this. I always get them fogged up, and that just kind of makes for a non-awesome experience. But what all I'm doing is I'm just taking a magnetic tray, well, magnetic parts tray, and as you can see, the clippings that are already there, right? And then I'm just taking them like right there, get under it, turn it over, and clip it. So I can save my parts. You never know when you need them. These legs, surprisingly enough, most people think, oh, they're all trash. I personally, after building a decent amount of pedals, a decent amount of different pedals specifically, I keep them because you never know when you're going to need to bridge between some terminals. And bridging between the terminals, guess what works perfectly for that? These legs. These component legs. Resistors specifically. That's it. Just making sure it looks decent enough. There's no real burn marks. Everything's solid. Everything is actually soldered. We're not leaving anything unsoldered. And then the front of the board I've gone ahead and put in the capacitors. I also added the diodes. You have two clear LEDs here, and they're reversed in polarity, so one side is positive and negative, the other side is negative and positive. You've got that guy right there, that little silver with, little black with silver right here, that's a diode. So you have three diodes that are actually part of the circuit, and then the other LED or light emitting diode will be the on-off indicator. Capacitors are all in place. The only one that was not in the kit was C1. C1 and C3 are the same. And then you have the integrated circuit chip socket. That's already soldered in. So now we can put in the integrated circuit chip, this guy right here. And last I checked, the circle goes towards, the circle, this little bitty dot right there. There we go. Goes into this section where there's a notch right there. And it's relatively simple, but every now and then you'll get some that are bent out too far or bent in too far. And the best thing I can tell you is just to take your time and not have to do it over and over again, because the legs will in fact break. And if that happens, you are effed hard, and not in the way that we all like. And there we go. There we go. When it's properly seated, you should have a minimal amount of gap right there, and that gap should be relatively even. And as you can see on the other side, same situation. Let me move my finger, and there you go. Got that little bit of gap right there, but not much. All right, so minus this capacitor, C1, the next step is going to be filling in these sets of holes, which are the potentiometers. So you have your input jack and your output jack. You have your power supply right there. The red LED will be popping out of there. That's going to go into this guy. It's going to go right there. We got another capacitor right there for the clear. And then these wires up here are going to get soldered to those connecting, right? IN to IN, V to V, G to G, O to O, etc. And this is going to be the switch. So insert switch LED and clear on this side, and the switch will quite literally sit like that. So solder those 9, and then do wires to all of this, going to these, the in and outs, all of the sides. Let me get my fingers out of the way. So you got your output jack, right? That's your output jack. Input jack, that's your input jack. Power, that's your power. And there are your 6 potentiometers, which will sit like that. And then we'll just link those cables together. All of this is next. So, yay! Here we go. The LED for the actual recognition of being on, we've got that, and the resistor right under here, and the switch all soldered to the board. I'm going to clean up these legs right here and those legs right there, the LED, and then we're going to move on to the next spot, which will be taking the printed circuit board taking the populated circuit board and getting it seated properly with all of the potentiometers and soldering. And then from there, the last piece will be getting all of the free wires connected properly to the two boards and the input and output jacks and the power insert, power barrel, power socket, whatever you want to call it. I really don't care. Sometimes these don't like to line up, so keeping everything loose is kind of a big thing. So far, okay, I got the bottom row taken care of. Top row looks pretty much there, with the exception of, is it the base? Might just be the base. The middle lug. There we go. Perfect. The middle lug of the base was the problem. So now, as you can see, I'll just push that down, verify. There's not really any rocking, but I like to kind of make it as even as possible, as best as possible. And then I tighten just so they don't go anywhere while I'm trying to solder them. All right, let's see, we got our tip. We're going to tin the tip. Blah. Just in case no one knows or you're not familiar with what to do here, I did go ahead and do the positive and negative for the power. We've already seen the section where the main printed circuit board and the daughter board and everything, it's really tight quarters. So this is pretty long for a cut, but I mean it really doesn't matter because things can just get kind of pushed down and moved around and all that. We don't have a battery going in here at all, so that's good. Nevertheless, how you do this properly, you take your set of wire strippers and just measure a small amount. Essentially, we're looking for something like that. Move it around for a minute and just pull on the actual pliers, the wire strippers. That's it. See? And then where I go from there is I just, by default, I think it just has to do with all the pickup work and stuff that I've done over the years. Just kind of twist your exposure. And then do it again on the other side. And all we're doing at this stage is stripping the wires and getting them soldered to the proper lugs for the input and output jack as well as the power, which is already done. There we go. And we'll take the twisty. And I usually like to take a little bit longer portion if there is one side that's longer than the other. In this case, it's these that I just cut. I like putting those on the lugs. Just because I go in at an angle on the lugs, and so I'm a fan. In this case, this is our positive, and how you can tell is because that's going to be the tip, and it is in between the sandwich, this board right here, and then the shorter that has the exposure to the ring, that's actually the ground. So it'll be red and black. And just like everything else you've seen before, it's kind of the same. What I do like to do with this is kind of get it laying across the chassis where there's exposure. All right, so where I have gotten to at this point right now is exactly what I was talking about. We took a positive and a negative from both the input and output jacks, as well as a positive and negative from the power terminal. And those, as you can see, there's a ground right here because the instructions told me to. Let's get that out of the way. There you go. And get a little bit closer. Get a little closer. Here we go. We had to take a new black cable and go create this ground right here, taking it to all of, let's see, can we do, there we go. Taking all black cables that are already to the input and output jack and the power and making that a ground network. Then I had to take the input jack positive, the output jack positive, and the power terminal, which goes into the V. Those are all powered. And then it told me to stop and check to see if I had audio, because adding a foot switch would not make a difference if it doesn't work currently. So I plugged it into the chain of my amp, turned on the audio interface, plugged the headphones in, and turned up all the potentiometers, volume and gainer, the most important, obviously, and it has a white noise hiss, which means that it has audio. So unfortunately, I have run out of time. I have to go pick up my son from school, but as you can see, the switch already has the, there you go, already has the LED and the capacitor, as well as the foot switch. And now that will be going in to these guys right there. From the actual points of input and output that I've already done, and I will be connecting them in, out, ground, and power. So we'll see, but in theory, this should be finished, and I will let you know because I will continue the video, but in case my voice sounds different or I sound a little more drag-ass and tired, it will be because it will be several hours from now. Cool. All right, what we've done, now that all of the nonsense is out of the way, is we've essentially attached, let me just bring it up closer here. There we go. Essentially, everything is now attached the way it should be. It was attached the way it should be anyways, but now it has a foot switch. So we've got our output, our voltage, our input, and our ground. And I did the color coding, so the orange is for output, the red is for voltage, the purple or indigo is for input, and ground is black. And then we can verify this, that it's correct. Yeah. Orange is going to output O, red voltage, purple or indigo is input, and black is ground. Then we've got the tip and sleeve for the output jack, and then you have the tip and sleeve or positive and net ground for the input jack. It's on the right side when we have it right side up. This is on the left side when we have it right side up. Yep, and then this is voltage and ground to the power input. So in theory, this works. Once I've got this all set up and pretty, to my liking, then we will fire it up and we will do some audio testing, of which I will record and include in this video. Here we go. The plastic washer and nut. Get my socket, my rocket socket. Thanks to my little helper here, we're getting it all finished up. Almost done. You got it. Great job, bud. Thumbs up. Yeah.
All right, this is the continuation of the video. This is the audio testing portion of said video for this Fred pedal from Jeds Peds. I apologize for all the background noise. My child is possessed, and we have motorcycles running up and down our street. Yay! All right, so quick breakdown. The amp is going to be a 2 Notes Revolt guitar, which is on the American Clean. It is a fixed cabinet for the XLR out, and the 1/4-inch out is going without a cab into the Torpedo Cab M Plus, running a Marshall Silver Jubilee Vintage 30 loaded 412 cabinet. Here's the clean tone. And the Fred, everything at 12 noon. Very pretty. Very, very pretty. I'm going to split coil the bridge pickup and then split the positioning of the pickups between both the bridge and the neck, P90. It's very chimey, very transparent, feels very good under the fingers. Less voltage. Let's see how it cleans up. Let's do full bridge with the volume on the guitar down to 10%. 20%. 30%. 40%. And it's already got distortion. Alright, so let's try split positioning with the bridge in full and the neck P90. There's about 50% right there. Split coil the bridge. That's where it sings. Turn the volume all the way up, get a little more grit. Sounds pretty, man. Sounds pretty. All right, let's start messing with some dials. First thing I'm going to do is the presence. Presence is now at 75% or 3 o'clock. All right, now I'm going to add a little gain. Gain's at about 2 o'clock now. All right, let's see. We're going to use some treble. Put it to 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. I'm going to back off the gain just a little bit for the moment and turn the bass up to about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. A little too much. Let's split the difference and go with 2. We're going to put the mids at 2 o'clock as well. So we got the TPS settings on the 3-band EQ, 2 o'clock on treble, middle, and bass. All right, so now the gain's back up to 3 o'clock. The presence is up to 3 o'clock. The volume's still at 12 noon, and that's got a lot of nice beef to it. And it's really up my alley, actually. These potentiometers are very, very, very sensitive. Like a little bit goes a long way. Let's see what happens when we move the volume up to 2 o'clock. Oh, clip the input. All right, I'm actually going to turn the input down on the audio interface so I don't clip it. There we go. I moved the presence up to just after 3 o'clock, and I moved the treble almost before 3 o'clock. Got a lot of lovely sustain to it. Without being too much, like it can be shrill, but I'm having a really difficult time having it get to be naturally too shrill. Like I'd have to push the presence all the way up. And I mean, presence and treble are already at 3 o'clock, so I think it's great. I'm going to push the gain just a little bit more. Got it just after 3 o'clock. All right, so it naturally compresses every setting that we had. So I'm going to take it back to before 3 o'clock. Volume's going to go up just a little bit, presence up just a little bit, treble up just a little bit, mids up just a little bit, bass up just a little bit. Yeah, see, that's too much. Move the mids down, move the presence down, move the bass down. Wow, I think it has to do with the volume, honestly. If I take the volume down and push everything else back up, it actually has more headroom. And yeah, that's a very sensitive volume knob. So definitely, just like an amp, when you boost the gain, you lower the volume. If you boost the volume, you back off of the gain. And that's exactly what I did, and it actually opened it up. It's got a lot more breath and punch to it now. Alright, so now let's split coil the bridge and split between the bridge and neck at... Oh, that's like 10%, maybe 15%. Wow, that's pretty. I'm very impressed, honestly. Let's give it a little more juice. A little more juice. It's a neck P90 if you couldn't tell. That's really impressive, man. Yeah, I'd say about 20% volume on the guitar. Wow. Throw a little double delay and reverb on it. I mean, I'm very, very pleased with that. Good solid build. Yeah, the instructions were garbage-ish. There's really no one to blame. Perhaps it's, better that way. But hey, man, at the end of the day, got myself a nice high gain overdrive, also known as the Fred. And I can't really say any negative things. I mean, it all worked out well. Everything works. All the parts were proper. The parts were actually inside of the chassis this time, from this company, I should say. And I love when companies do that because it's the smartest thing you can possibly do, as opposed to leaving everything floating around in a bag and then dumping it in a box and then shipping it across seas. And this is from the United Kingdom, so there you have that. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, share, etc. Leave comments in the comment section and let me know if there's something else you're looking for, or maybe some solid feedback, something I missed, something that'd be nice for me to try, something of that nature. Okay.